What's up, everyone? So now I'm releasing my book I wrote for free, where anybody can download it if they want. You should be able to go to the description section in the YouTube video here, and there'll be a PDF that you can download and read the book for free yourself. I'm just giving it away to try and help spread the idea of freedom. The book is called Handbook to Freedom. Originally it was called a Handbook to Freedom and World Peace. I'm trying to create peace in this world. And I think the only way we can do that is through freedom. And if everybody had the ability to do their own thing and be left alone, I think we'd be in a lot better off situation, because everybody just fights all the time because everybody's being forced to live by another group's ways, and it's just creating constant conflict. So I believe freedom is the answer that will create peace in this world. I'm doing this as a promise to my son, Dylan Paul. He passed away. He was born premature. He was 1 pound even when he was born. He lived for 6 weeks, and unfortunately I wasn't there when he passed away. I was on the road working, and I had a bunch of crews at the time, and I had to try and take care of stuff. So I was able to eventually go meet up with him, and I held him in my arms, and I promised him I'd do everything in the world to try and make this world a better place. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for fame or anything. I don't care. I'm just doing it to try and help the world and say the things that need to be said. So this is it. I started looking at all the problems in the world, and I just present a problem and then try and look for the best solution. And I'm asking everybody out there to try and maybe work with me and help make these solutions better. These obviously aren't perfect. I'm just spitballing ideas, and we could take these ideas and make them so much better. Mankind can adapt and overcome anything, and it's just a matter of trying to do something different. What we're doing isn't working, so we got to try something different at some point, and these are just the most logical solutions that I can come up with. And they may be hard at first, but if we adapt them and tinker with them, and anytime we present an obstacle, if we try and work through it together, we could overcome it. And so that's where I'm at. I wrote a book of solutions. So I kind of present a problem, and then I present a solution, and that's the way the setup of this book goes. And I'm just going to give a quick rundown of each chapter and what it is. Like I said, you're more than welcome to read the book for yourself. If you want a quick rundown, this is just going to be a little quick rundown of each chapter and my main overall view and point I'm trying to get at the whole everything. So up first, I got the introduction, which is just kind of going to be me explaining what the idea of the book is, pretty much just like this. The next chapter is going to be food, and I believe in order to have freedom, the number one thing that we have to have is food. We have to be able to survive on our own without being dependent upon an outside source, or dependent upon a government or Monsanto or a grocery store even, to where we can survive. Because without that ability, we are destined to be shackled to our ability to survive with food. And so whoever controls the food controls all the power, and they control us. You just got to think about it. What if you couldn't go to the grocery store tomorrow, and you suddenly woke up and the economy collapsed, or there's a solar flare or whatever, something happened, EMP, and you couldn't go to the grocery store? What would you do, and how would you survive? Chaos would ensue. Bad things would happen. So we need to figure out how to feed ourselves locally as a community, or even as a household. I think that's the number one thing we can do to achieve freedom in this world, is just be able to survive and feed ourselves. As crazy as it sounds, that's it. Close followed by energy. Energy is another one. I think they use oil and other forms of energy to suppress us and keep power over us. You know, I mean, we understand that if the cost of oil goes up, the cost of everything goes up in this world, and everything uses oil at this point. And so if we could find another form of energy, free energy, or something we can build in our backyards, that would give us freedom as well, and give the power back to the people, literally. And so I do have an idea for that. I'm asking anybody out there who has an invention, something along the lines of that, to please release it, open source it, because they will never let something like that get out. They shut it down. If you go to patent it, they take it, say it's a matter of national security, and shut it down instantly. So we have to just stop caring about money and open source our inventions. I open source my best one. It's not the greatest, but and it needs a lot of work, but theoretically it checks out, and it is something local that we could do right now everywhere locally. And so next is the government. Personally, I believe the federal government is completely lost and no longer in we the people's hands if we have politicians creating 1,000-page laws where they don't even read and don't even know what's going on, that's no longer freedom, and that's no longer run by we the people. It's run by money. So the only option that I think we can have is to just put the power back in the local people's hands and say we no longer abide by the federal government, create what's called a home rule charter, and vote our own laws and ways into effect. A home rule charter allows us to do that, where we can basically secede from the federal government, do our own thing locally. Yeah, and so it's just a peaceful way to step away and say, no, we will no longer abide by your corruption and your corrupt ways, and then in turn we'll be able to help our communities, proper communities, up the best we can. If you look around, our local communities run everything. The federal government doesn't really do much for us. So yeah, I created a different way of thinking. I call it localism, and a different whole political party, if you will. But yeah, I call it localism political party, and where we just keep everything local and say screw federal government, basically, because they're just all corrupt. I feel they are. So from there, we got money. Money is manipulated. Inflation creates power. It's just a disbursement of power and wealth from one to the other. It's just a way of robbing us. Inflation is. And then you got things like quantitative easing, and it's a big game that they play. If you look into the Libor scandal, there's a $500 trillion Libor scandal where they got caught manipulating, obviously, the way the banks know when interest is going to come out, because they run the Federal Reserve. That's the way it all works. Is there's a bunch of banks that run the Federal Reserve, and they know when rates are going to go up or down because they control it, so they can play the stock market based on that. And they got found guilty. They got caught doing it with a $500 trillion Libor scandal. So you can look that up, LIBOR. So the most logical solution is to take their ability away to manipulate the money, and put it in a tangible object, which would be gold or silver. We did have that before, and that's the most logical way to do it. You got to have some form of tangible object to have as a currency, as a base for your currency. So eventually gold or silver can be monopolized, so that's a thought that we still have to worry about. The game Monopoly can still be won if somebody just gets all the gold. So you want, logically, a renewable object that is very useful, that everybody can use. I created a hemp currency to where it's all based on hemp. Hemp cleans the world, so we grow the hemp. It's a super sponge for CO2, so it pulls CO2 out of the air, clean the world. And at the same time, we could start a depot that makes the hemp dollars, if you will, and it's local right here in our community. And we take raw hemp and we give it to them, and in turn they give us these hemp dollars, and we go out and we spend them in the community. And people in the community, when they need their supplies for building or whatever, they come and they buy the hemp resources from the depot. And all the depot does is take it from a plant and puts it into different forms, whether you got materials for clothing, or whether you got hemp oil. Henry Ford was running cars in the 1930s from run on hemp oil and made out of hemp, and it was 5 times stronger than steel. He was on the cover of Popular Mechanics with a sledgehammer about how his cars were 5 times stronger than steel. So that is something that we could do. You can even eat hemp seeds. They're more nutritious than sunflower seeds. They got hempcrete. You can literally do anything with hemp. You can build an entire community with it, and even biodegradable hemp in exchange for plastic and stuff like that. There's just so much we could do, and we could keep it all local. We could run our cars. We could do everything. We could create everything we need right there, and clean the world at the same time. So from there is taxes. Fundamentally, taxation is theft. Anybody who takes something from somebody else without them willingly being like, hey, I'm okay with this, that's theft. So I believe taxes should be voluntary. In order for this to work, we the people stand up and we say, we will no longer be subjected to your taxes. We're not going to do this anymore, and instead we're going to give you what we think we should give you. Make this multiple choice. So if the government were to think logically and say, okay, voluntarily, let's do this and make this a true free society, they would give us a multiple choice, in which case they divide up how much of each of our taxes goes towards what division, and we get to choose what we put a check mark by and what we want to fund. If we don't want to fund, Republicans won't want to fund Democrat stuff, and Democrats don't want to fund Republican stuff. So we'd all be free to choose the entities that we want to fund, and it would work out great. It would be a voluntary free society, and from there, governments get a budget, and they have to work from that budget, and they get the budget that we give them, and that's simple. We balance the budget immediately, and we just say, instead of writing an opening check to where you guys can rob our kids and our future for future generations and do whatever you want. No, we're not going to do that anymore. We are voluntarily going to give you what you get, and if stuff don't work, then it looks like we're going to have to donate more, and it will. There'll be hard parts where it will be hard and difficult, but we can adapt and overcome and figure it out, I promise you. And that's the way a true free society should be run. So that's where I am. I stand on what I believe. I personally don't pay taxes, and I stand on that. You can go through other videos and see. But I stand by what I believe. So from there, we could also do business taxes, where business could locally choose what they want to tax people and put it on the wall. Right when you walk in, it says, they can choose to give 0% sales tax, or they could put 100% sales tax and give it all to the school, or give it all to the roads, or whatever. But they put on the wall, on the front door, how much sales tax they charge you and what it goes to. And it's really that simple. Maybe start some kind of ethics, local ethics thing where it keeps everybody and makes sure everything goes where it's supposed to. But yeah, these are all things we could easily figure out, and go into it way more in depth in the book. So nature. I believe that we are all connected in this world. Without going too philosophical or too religious, I don't necessarily believe in the standard God. I believe that we're all energy and that we're all connected somehow. And I just question everything, and I don't know how it works. But I believe that nature is the closest thing to God, if you will, or connection with everything there is. And so we really have to respect nature and learn to coexist with nature. That's essential to our species to carry on, and not just our species, to this world, because we're destroying the world on so many different levels. It's just runoff from our crops to just every aspect. We're just polluting cities, polluting waterways, polluting oceans, overproducing, overusing everything. And so we have to figure out how to coexist with nature. And the number one way to do that would be to realize that whatever we take and consume, we have to replenish just as much as we're consuming. And if we don't, we're going to destroy whatever it is. We just have to respect basically the laws of math. Math says if there's only so many swordfish in the ocean, and we're taking 10% of the swordfish a year, in 10 years, there's going to be no swordfish. And you could take that to everything, rhinos or bees or anything. Just apply simple math to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And eventually you're going to run out of something, redwood trees or or for lumber or anything. So that needs to be our goal, to produce as much as we consume. And hemp is a super producer and grows super quick. And that's why I think that hemp is just the greatest material, because it's so produces so much, it's so hardy, and it cleans the world as it does it. So there's so many things that we could do with that. But that's the number one thing we could do with nature, is just, that's our number one goal, is to produce as much as we consume. The number two thing is, whenever a big corporation damages the planet in some major significant way, they have to be held accountable. So the way it works right now is that corporations, whenever they, I'm sorry, I'm trying to eke out this car right here. All right. So whenever corporations harm the planet, what they do is they simply charge more money. They get a fine. So if a corporation harms the planet, they get a big fine. And let's say it's a couple $1 million because they dumped a bunch of oil in the ocean, or a bunch of pesticides in the river, or a bunch of nastiness somewhere and destroyed the planet in some way. They'll get a big fine, and it'll be $10 million. So they just take that, and once again, it's a math thing for them. So they'll have their product, and their product usually costs $1 per product or whatever, and they'll mark it up, the cost, and just divide it by each product, and they'll just send the fine down to the consumer. So all it does is harm us, the consumer. It doesn't harm the business in any way, and they don't care. And so what it does is it allows them to keep damaging the planet and just destroying the planet, and they don't care, because all it is a fine, and that's just the cost of doing business. They don't care. But if you held them accountable, and anytime some major harm was done to the planet, if we went and we put these people in jail, the head top CEOs and the top 10 people in the company, if all 10 of them were held accountable for the company's actions anytime something bad, because when you harm the planet, you're harming my kids, my grandkids, everybody. You're not just harming the fish or anything. We all coexist. We all are in this together. We're all connected beyond more than what we would ever know. Like I said, I think we're connected all through energy somehow, all through this universe, through everything. So when we harm it, we're all harming each other. And so that's where a line should be drawn. And whenever that harm happens from the person that did the harm, the person that actually spilled the oil or did that, they need to be held accountable and go to actual jail. And then the CEOs need held accountable and actually go to jail as well and face harsh jail sentences. And what this will do is it will create a mentality of, instead of, oh, I just can do whatever I want, I don't care, it's just going to be a fine, I'm going to pass that to the consumer, I don't care, to, oh man, this is a major problem, I'm going to go to jail, I like my freedom, I'm going to run my company clean and figure this out on how to not have any accidents. And suddenly you will notice, I promise, that all these companies run very clean, tight ships. It will change instantly. The way they do business will change instantly. So that's my idea for nature. War and peace, this one gets a little heavy. So I think, like I said, through peace, I think we just kind of need to accept everybody's opinions and just maybe not fight so much and just be a little more accepting of our fellow man. Like I said, all we do is fight because everybody's ways is being pushed upon each other. And if we just have the ability to say, you know what, I want them, they can have their opinion as long as they don't force it on me, that's fine. Go do your own thing. I'm happy for you. And I think that's where we need to get as far as peace in this world. And as far as war, you know, people are always going to fight. So why not create war contracts? And just people that want to fight, if they sign contracts, let them fight. And from there, I think that bombs and any weapon beyond what you can hold and fire or throw, like you can throw a hand grenade, you can shoot, and hand grenade's really kind of questionable because that's an explosive and innocent people can be harmed. At the end of it all, harming an innocent person is wrong. And anytime a child, an innocent woman or child or man or anybody, especially children, is harmed, I don't care what country you're from, who did it, what happens. Whoever did it needs to be held accountable. We can't keep hurting innocent people in this world. We've done it all throughout history, and we need to stop. And it's just getting worse. And the bigger bombs, and that's all that these bombs are going to ever create is harm for innocent people. So, logically speaking, I think we as a planet, an entire planet, not country, not state, not nation, anything, as an entire planet, need to step up to all our leaders and say, we've had enough. No more bombs, no more weapons of mass destruction, whether it be chemical, whether it be germ, whether it be bombs, all of this. Let's ban all of them. Every country, everywhere, nobody gets bombs. Nobody. And this will in turn give the power back to the people as well, because when the government has way better weapons than you do, you're not as free as you think you are, because they can come in and drill bomb you. I mean, we may have ARs or sniper rifles or whatever, but we can't do anything to. They got weapons that'll blow our eardrums out. They just fly by in a drone, blow our eardrums out, and we die. I mean, that's something that we definitely need to worry about, you know. So it's just, as far as war and peace goes, people will fight forever. It's always going to be people are always going to fight. So just take the innocent out of it. Stop hurting innocent people. That's all I'm asking. That's the only thing I'm trying to do. And in order to do that, we could sign contracts. There's this thing called Snake Island, way out in the middle of nowhere, and it's covered with snakes. And I know it's not the most best idea, but we just wipe out the snakes off the island. I know I just talked about nature and coexisting, but if we could sacrifice this one island for the sake of all humanity and the rest of the planet, I think it'd be a good idea, because we could just nuke the whole world right now, and I don't think that's what any of us want. None of us want that. But if we keep going down our same path, that seems like what we're headed for. So like I said, clear off Snake Island, and then from there we just go and let them go at it, man. Anybody who wants to fight, go out there and just fight it out, televise it. And if you're out there on Snake Island, we could even bring in the planes and battleships and all that, man. Just let it rip, televise it. We can put bets on it or whatever, and we could do it from small one-on-one conflicts. So this guy has a problem with this guy, and they're gonna fist fight to or you know, they're going to fist fight until somebody just taps out, and just you put the contract to the level that you want it to. If you go beyond what somebody just tapping out, then you've committed a crime, you know. And then from there you can go past and do actual combat, you know, as far as you want to take it till somebody's unalived or whatever. And groups of people, you could have groups and entire nations and countries, and like I said, just have them fight it out there. And we could take the same idea and do it locally and have a spot in a couple valleys or something, way out in the middle of nowhere. As long as no innocent person's harmed, let people fight it out. That's just where we need to be, is just quit harming innocent people, and let's just figure out a way to do this within contract limits, you know. I mean, we could even have contracted sword battles, you know, and you just duel with swords to the finish, you know, or however you want to do it. But I think that's how we can create peace in this world, as crazy as it sounds. Just let people war, just take the innocent out of it. From there, we got healthcare. I believe the biggest thing with healthcare is right now they look for a cure, and they never address the cause. So they just want to allow people to keep doing the same thing that we're doing, and just come in and say, well, here's a magic pill that fixes everything, instead of addressing the cause and going, well, this is what's causing the problem. You need to stop doing this in order to get better. So that's what they do, is they just say, well, we're going to just let you keep doing what you're doing, and we're just going to try and create a pill. But what we don't understand is that anytime you take something and put it into the body, it adapts, just like anything else. The body's super adaptable, super strong, and that's what's made us so strong and able to survive. So anything you put in there, the body's going to react and adapt to it and react accordingly. So if you put a medicine in the body, whatever it is that medicine is doing, the body is going to let that medicine do to recompensate. So whatever problem it is you put the medicine in for, logically, the more medicine you give it, the more your body's going to become dependent upon it, and kind of the worse the problem is going to get. I know it's a backwards way of thinking, but natural cures, I feel, are the best to always try and do. I mean, obviously you can't cure everything with nature, but we could do a lot. But I think that's the fundamental problem with a lot of medicine nowadays, is that they just address the cure. They look for the cure, not the cause. And if we would change our mentality and just try and just be like, well, this is what's causing that, let's work hard to not do that anymore, we'd fix a lot of our problems. Not all of them by any means, of course. There's a lot of things out there. From there, we got police and the courts. I'm going to be releasing a little video on this shortly, but so I believe that the justice system has become more about money than it has justice, and that we got police officers on the roads stopping people for victimless crimes when they haven't hurt anybody, and just getting money instead of solving the crimes that are out there. And we need to change the way we do it, because the crimes that are being committed aren't being solved, and it's letting crime run rampant. So in order to fix this, we need to just change the manpower and stop doing what we're doing. We've got to stop bothering victimless crimes, people who are doing victimless crimes, and hold accountable the people that are doing the crimes. It seems logical to me. And at the same time, there's nepotism and problems within the system where police could be crooked and corruption can run rampant, and so we got to be able to control that as well. There's this thing called qualified immunity, to where cops and judges and all these people can do what they want without being held accountable. So the best way we can put the power back into the people's hands is to do what's called a justice box, where we take and in county or in any public area that's owned by the public, we put a box with a camera on it, and it can't be manipulated or tampered with at any time. We make it super secure, and if anybody does, we go and we get them. You know, I mean, it's a crime, big crime. But people can go and just have this box and drop a file in it. And from there, everybody in the community that wants to be a part of this, hopefully everybody in the community, but even if they don't, even if you get like 10% or whatever, we got 40,000 people in Camden County. So if we had 4,000 people that wanted to do this idea, they sign up and say, okay, I want to be part of the justice, helping justice occur. So once a month, we draw the numbers. Every person gets a number that wants to be involved. They get a number. And once a month, we draw it like a lotto or a Powerball or whatever, bingo, and draw numbers. And these random numbers are people and they come, and together we get 10 people, and these 10 people open up this box once a month. And when they do it all on camera, everything in the open, and they don't really say anything until they read all the stuff, and then they vote individually on whether it goes to trial or not. And if you get 6 votes or even 8 votes, you can put it wherever you want. People can vote it in with petitions, however you want to do this. But if you get so many votes, a majority of the votes, then it bypasses the cops, because the cops can look at a case and throw it out. Or the prosecutor eventually has the most power of anybody in the whole county, because they can throw out any case they want. That puts one person in charge of all the justice in the whole county. And it leaves the door open for massive corruption. So what this does is it makes it to where these 10 people can look at any case and say, okay, this is a crime here that's been committed by somebody that might even have been connected to the system and didn't do anything because they were buddies, or they might be a part of the system. And so what this does is it now puts it in the public hands, and the public can now see what's going on. And this goes to a jury trial, and it bypasses the prosecutor, it bypasses the police. And so that is a way to put the power back in the people's hands. And from there, if the police, there's a lot of different ways. You could have citizens come together and go, and citizens arrest people if the police won't honor it. There's just a bunch of different ways we could look at this to try and figure this out. But at the end of it, due process has to occur, and this is just a way to get the trial to go, to get a law that's been broken, or somebody that has been harmed, justice. And so that way you can bypass corruption and go and ensure justice and due process. And this is the best way I feel that we can do that. And I think that the justice system still has the ability to be used. We just have to use it to our best advantage. And so, yeah, that's basically where I'm at. I got other ideas as far as the police go. I think the fines, all they do is give the court money, and it's not a form of justice, because a poor single mother that gets an insurance ticket because she can't afford insurance, that's $100 fine for that is a way bigger fine for a doctor that's speeding and got $100 fine for speeding. He doesn't care. He's going to do it again or whatever. They don't even care. The $100 is something for a multi-millionaire. They don't care. That's like $5. But for this single mother that's struggling to get by and doesn't even have money for insurance in the first place, and now you're going to give her a $100 fine on top of that, this is life or death. This is a major deal. And you walk into courts and you see nothing but people that are poverty-stricken, and their only crime is being poor. And this is insane. It continues to go on this way. And so that's where I feel that the justice system's broke a lot. So we just need to fix that aspect. Transfer the money out of it. Maybe make them not drive such nice cars, and instead just work as a community. And then I also want to start like a volunteer police department where people in the community keep cameras on them at all time, and it takes away the qualified immunity, because you're no longer a police officer. And if you hurt somebody while you're out in the community doing something, and they don't come at you first, then you've committed a crime. But if they come at you first, just self-defense, so you're allowed to do that, and it's all on camera. So just anybody who has, we need people to step up and try and protect these communities and do what's right. And if we could just get, local people, and even subdivisions or little towns or blocks or whatever, wherever you're at, to come together, and you get 10, 20 people to come together, and whenever there's a dispute locally, instead of calling the cops or something, just have the local community come together and say, look, we're going to try and figure this out. And don't let corruption run rampant there. You can't give them any power or anything above anybody else. Their powers need to be limited to just trying to help. And we just need to find people that actually care and want to help. And that's just a matter of doing it. If sometimes we can't just say the government needs to do that and rely on the government. Sometimes we need to do it ourselves. And so I'm going to be releasing a little bit more on that when I break down my sheriff's thing. I am running for sheriff because I got to practice what I preach. So from there we got beliefs in religion and sexuality, and just our core beliefs and what we believe. I think people fight over that a lot, and I think that's the thing that matters really, as far as control and stuff. As long as we're not forcing our ways on somebody else, we should be free to do whatever we want. Let everyone be free in every way. Just don't force your beliefs on somebody else. The line is drawn when you force your stuff on somebody else, because nobody wants their ways, another person's ways, forced on them. If somebody voluntarily says, that's cool or whatever, but you don't want it forced. So that's where I believe everyone should be free to do whatever they want, sexually or religiously or whatever, until you harm somebody. If you harm somebody, due process and justice must occur. You can't ever use religion or sexuality or anything as an excuse to be like, well, I'm allowed to harm you or do some harm to somebody because of this reason, and that's not logical. Sorry, I got to block the car again. Just trying to do my most. Yep. All right, so like I said, yeah, you just never want to harm anybody else. And if there ever has been harm because of your belief, then you have to recognize that and be held accountable through due process and realize that you've went too far with whatever belief you have, religious, sexual, whatever. Yeah, I think that, like I said, we just have to learn to accept everybody else's views and perspectives and not push our own on anybody else and say, you're free to do that. I'm proud of you. That's great. You don't believe what I believe, but you go for it, man. Just don't hurt me. And that's the end of that conversation. I really believe that that's as far as it should go. The next chapter is poverty. So, right now, to feed the world, we need to use 10%, or we need 10% of food of what we have right now. So if we could figure out how to make 10% more food, we would feed the entire world. Or we waste 30% of the food that we produce in this world. 30% of everything that we make or produce as a planet is thrown in the trash. So logically, if we could just take a third of that and save a third of that and use that to feed people, because 10% is all it would take to end all of world hunger. So if we just set up a system just like the mail system and said, okay, anytime anybody has leftovers or food that's getting whatever that's just not wanted, you take it and you freeze it, and you have a rolling mailman that has a freezer truck that comes around once a day and goes around to everybody like a mailman and just picks up all the food from businesses or whatever, and then we disperse it out to those in need. And it's the mail system's kind of struggling anyway. Just put freezers in all their trucks and just let UPS handle the mail, and let the government aspect, if we voluntarily fund this, let them feed the world and help the world. I think that we could just adapt and overcome real easy. We just got to try, and we're not trying. We're just seems like we're spinning our wheels on a lot of places. But yeah, I think that would solve a lot. And then reusing everything else. We are just such a wasteful world. I do trash and I clean stuff up, and I do trash hauls, and I'm telling you, I could furnish anybody's house anytime. I throw so much furniture and stuff. Anything that you need in this world is thrown away every day. Just a quick little rundown. There's a light bulb in California in a fire station that's been going since 1890, I think. And so it's been going like 130 years without stopping. In the 50s or 60s or whatever, the light bulb manufacturers got together and said these light bulbs are lasting forever. We need to make it a disposable society. And so that's what they did. And they deliberately made light bulbs to where they break. And now all society has done that. And we just are not striving to make things last or to do things right. And I think that if we reused what we have and we just changed our mentality a little bit, we could solve a lot of the problems and a lot of the poverty and a lot of the worst stuff in this world. And obviously voluntarily start local funds. And like I said, if you're not paying taxes and you have 30% of your taxes, think of what you could do locally to help your local community. So from there we go on to racism. That's a real hard one. You think it would be crazy for me, a white male, to try and explain. I know I haven't experienced the negatives of generational racism, but I have experienced a lot of hardships in this world, and I feel that money is more of a thing than race. I know it sounds crazy, but as somebody who has lived a lot of his life in poverty, I've seen a lot of the same hardships and a lot of the same obstacles to overcome as other races or whatever, because it's just it's a generational curse, I guess, if you will, to just be such down in a hole. And you can obviously overcome it at any time, but it's so much harder to overcome. In theory, you can, but and I did at one point, but it's just it's real hard. I think Morgan Freeman's view is probably one of the best. He said, if you want to stop racism, stop talking about it. And I think the more we focus on it, the more division it creates, and the more hate, anger, and it just riles everybody up. Because if everybody's always talking about racism, it's all we focus on, and it consumes us, and it sometimes can go both ways. And it seems like I just wish it would stop. I think that we just need to stop focusing so much on it. We all have our own problems, and we're all just trying to get by in this world. And if you really want to get crazy, this is where I'm going to go real crazy. So I think that if you look, in St. Louis in the 1,000 years ago, it was just about 1,000 years ago, in 1000 AD, there was a population of 20 or 30,000 people in St. Louis. Most people don't know this. It's called Cahokia. You can go to the Cahokia Mountains. They're right outside of St. Louis right now. It's a UNESCO heritage site, World Heritage Site of history. You can go there right now. I've been there. I got some pictures of it. I might post here. But it's freaking awesome. But that was a civilization that was bigger than any in Europe at the time. So 1,000 years ago, you'd think that the biggest civilization, the biggest town, biggest city was in Europe, right? Nope, St. Louis. Absolute fact, look it up. London was bigger than St. Louis, you think? Nope. And this was 1000 AD. Christopher Columbus got over here in 1492, so this would have been 500 years before Columbus ever even stepped foot here. We had the biggest city right here in St. Louis. Right here. Let your mind wrap around that. So, where did these people come from, you might ask? A lot of people don't know. And you're like, wow, well, if that happened, how did these people get here? That's crazy. There's all this stuff. Of course they got, somebody was there. Somebody built these. They're giant, almost like pyramids all over. There's hundreds of them all over. You can go tour them right now. But there are actually spots where they built above the river to where they just made civilizations there. But how did they get there? I think they came from Egypt. And whenever Rome and Egypt had or Greece and Egypt had their problems, the Egyptians bailed and said, you know what, we're going to go over here. And they came up the Gulf and they went up the Mississippi River and they said, we're going to get as far away and go into land and get as far away as we can from whoever's chasing us or whatever. And they came up there and they set a civilization. If you look, Native Americans look a lot like Egyptians. I know there's probably DNA and all this other stuff that says I'm probably wrong or whatever, but just looking, using my eyes and looking and saying, okay, Egyptians look a lot like Native Americans. This is the thing. And from there, that takes you way down a rabbit hole. And then you got Machu Picchu. You got all kinds of stuff. So it shows where they got ruins out in Arizona and Grand Canyon. There's a lot. You can go way down this rabbit hole. But anyways, the point of all that is that I have major Native American blood in my bones. I think I'm like 16th or 32nd Native American, which is pretty significant. My great-grandmother, or my great-great-grandmother, I think one of them too, was full-blooded Native American. My dad knew her and knew her well. So that's how close it was, where she was 100% Native American. And so if she was Native American, and if my theory is correct, which they don't know where the civilization in St. Louis, they don't know where they came from, so it's a question. So if my assumption is correct, and they are from Egypt, then that would mean that I am in turn part African American, because Egyptians came from Africa. So at this point, I have partial African American blood. And so that is a whole rabbit hole that we can go down. But when you want to talk about past things or past trauma that's happened, and just focus on things that are out of our control. I have never owned a slave. I don't know anybody that's owned a slave. And all this hate and resentment and anger towards a race, I think, is brought on by our government to make us divided. And they want us divided and conquered. And the more they can do that on everything, through religion and politics and everything. So we got to understand, the more they push it on us, the more that might be designed. So we got to stop falling for their tricks and break down their hate and their anger and say, you know what, I don't care if somebody looks different to me or is a different color. I love them, and I want to go put my arm around them, and we're going to be brothers, because that's what we all are at the end of the day. We're all connected in this world. We're all connected in one way or the other, and it doesn't even matter if somebody's skin color is different. We're all the same down inside. None of this matters. It's so insignificant, and it's so not worth even fighting or getting angry about, because like I said, I can't control what my ancestors did. I can't control any of that. And I'm a curse of generational poverty as well. And I know we talk about reparations and stuff, but I would never get anything like that. That's terrible to me. And who knows? I mean, I might be part African American as well. I mean, so at what point do normal, if you break it down, do normal people stop becoming? I mean, so if one person is just half black, are they still black? Or if one person is 10th black, are they still black? Or where does it become mixed and muddied up? And if you look that way, we're all mixed and we're all muddied up, and all our heritage is mixed up everywhere, and so we're all connected. And as much as some people might want to say, oh, I'm not black or I'm not white or whatever, we all are. We all got some kind of something that connects somewhere. We're all a bunch of mutts. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Maybe the 13 families. Wait, I shouldn't go down that rabbit hole. But anyways, us for the most part that are just the masses. We're all just mutts. So we just got to realize that there's been a lot of terrible things done throughout mankind's history, throughout everywhere, and it still is, and we got to fix it at some point. And focusing on the past and the anger and the resentment of all the stuff that previous generations and previous people did that we have no control over will never fix anything. We just have to let it go, and we have to friendly say, I love you and I don't want to fight about it, and let's just let it go. And so that's where I'm at, is I'm trying to say, let it go. Let's just, everybody, let it go and stop focusing on it. And so that's where I'm at. I know it sounds crazy, but that's my thought on racism. And I'm sure some people may not have the same view, but we all have different views. And I'm not trying to force my view on you. I'm just trying to talk about solutions. And I think that peacefully putting our arm around each other and saying, you know what, history sucks. It has sucked for a lot of people throughout all history, and I'm sorry, but we're going to do better now. And all we got is this moment, and let's just make it better right now. So, from there, science. Science is a little rabbit hole we can go down. So, the term and the thought of science itself is always questioning and learning. And in this world, we will never know anything. This is a vast, vast world. I mean, even me connecting you through this right now, it's coming through radio waves and signals and things we don't see, but it obviously exists because you're seeing it. And there's just so many frequencies and wavelengths and things that we don't see and don't understand, and it's infinite on what we don't know. We know a very small spectrum of the way this universe works. So we have what we think we know. But the fundamental basis for science is you're always learning and questioning. So you always have to question anything and always be available to adapt and learn anything with new information. So science can be manipulated at any given point or science can be even changed at any given point by living out variables. So if you forget a variable and you're like, oh man, I forgot that variable, but you've already did a bunch of science and you did all these other 500 variables, and you think you have every base covered, and you're like, this is science, I have scienced it, I am 100% right, this is great. Well, you forgot a variable, and now all your data and everything you think you know has changed. And that's the way science works, is it's subject to change at any given point, ever. At any given point, we can learn something new. And that's, if you look, ask Pluto. Say, hey, Pluto, you planet still up, bro? No. All right, man. So things change. And so our ability to adapt and learn is always changing. And so at any given point, we can learn another perspective or another thing that we forgot, and science will change completely. So that's the main thing of science, is that you can never know everything in this world, and that it's always available to be changed. And so sometimes the question becomes, can it be manipulated on purpose? And I think it can. I think money runs the world, and if somebody wants to do something for a certain cause, or for their employer or somebody that's paying them, they can deliberately forget variables and deliberately leave things out. And at that point, your science has changed, your science is flawed. And I think science can never be settled, because there always needs to be somebody to question from a different perspective, or add more variables. Like I said, all you got to do is remove a variable in the science, remove or add one variable, and the science is always subject to change. So science is never settled. It's all the science in and of itself is always subject to change and learn more. And so that's just where I see science. And it's a great thing, but at the same time, we always got to be leery, because somebody could say, I've done science and this is the way. And at that point, that's no longer science, because they could be deliberately leaving out variables and manipulating the outcome like they want to. So that's like I said, science is a great thing that gives us a lot of answers and a lot of solutions to a lot of problems. But at the same time, we got to just be weary and say, we're always subject to learn, and science doesn't know everything in this world. So that's where I am. Next up comes abortion. This one's a hard one. I think the governments use abortion as a tool to divide the masses, because at the end of it, you can never make anybody believe what you believe, no matter what. Right-wing Christian will never make a left-wing liberal believe that God is the right answer and that abortion is wrong. You will never, no matter what argument or what you say or how good of a thought point you have in your own perspective, to you it checks out, but to them, they will never see it your way. And the same thing with a liberal, or the left-wing side that says, no matter what, I'm for abortion, and I'm going to get this Christian that doesn't see it my way. I want to get them to see it my way and just change their entire existence on life. That's never going to happen, and it's not a logical thought to ever think it's going to happen from either perspective, because nobody will ever just flip and be like, oh, I see it your way, let's do it your way. So we have to go from that perspective to start off with, instead of just perpetually debating abortion and thinking that we're going to get somewhere because you're going to make the other side see your view. That's never going to happen. So what do we do at this point? We will never make the other side see our view. How do we solve this problem? We got to accept other people's views. And that's the hardest part, is that there's two ways to perceive life. Fundamentally, there's just two ways to perceive life. One is when the sperm hits the egg. That is a life, no matter what. When the sperm hits the egg, that's created a life right there. That's the existence and how it works. The other way is when a baby comes out of the womb and takes its first breath. At that point, that is a life that is its own 100% being outside of anybody else. That is a life right there. And there is no denying that fact, that once a baby takes a breath, it's a life. From there, people's perspective can always be one or the other on if it's a life before that. I personally believe it's when the sperm hits the egg. That's just my personal thoughts. But I can't force somebody to believe what I want. What I fundamentally think we can do... Oh, another car going by. It's all right. What I fundamentally think we can do is just do what we can locally and allow freedom to reign supreme, because we have to allow freedom. Like I said, I answer any question with freedom, and this is a really hard one, because it's all about perception, and that's why the government focuses on this one, is because you either perceive sperm and egg or you perceive first breath, and that a woman has control of her body. And I think that the freedom for a woman to have control of her own body is an important thing too. I couldn't imagine having something grow inside of me, but at the same time, a man has helped create that, so a man should kind of get a say too. But these are all different perspectives that you can't control. So all you can do is control where you're at, and do what you can locally to make the community the best you can where you're at. And if somebody over there wants to believe what they believe, you know what? Let them believe it. They have the freedom to do that. And so if a woman wants to believe that her body is her body, which I believe as well, so that's where I'm conflicted with both sides, is because I wouldn't want to be forced to do something against my will. And so if you force a woman to do something against her will with her own body, that's a loss of freedom. So that's where I'm so conflicted, and it's just a really hard one to deal with. And like I said, the only way you can logically cure this is not just make a broad law that controls everybody. All you can do is in your community, right where you're standing, say, look, this is how we're going to do this locally right here. This is what we the people have decided in this community. This is how we're going to run things, and that's as far as you can take it. If somebody else over there wants to live life differently, you just got to let them do it, and we just got to learn to accept each other's views. And I think that that's going to be the cure to this, is just being more open-minded to accepting others. And I think that's the fundamental cure. And I know each side is torn, because it hurts to know either side, that somebody's being forced to do something against their will, or that a potential life could be being taken. And it's a real hard subject that gets really emotional, but we got to try to put our emotions and our feelings aside and just do what we can to create peace and get along, because us fighting forever about this is never going to fix anything, and it's never going to create a solution. So we just got to look for a solution somehow. And it's a hard one, but I feel that's what we got to do. So on next, we got technology. Yeah, I think that we've become super dependent upon technology, and we've taken away our freedoms once again by giving technology all the ability to do everything. Like right now, even our food generation is all dependent upon tractors and stuff. And if there was a solar flare or an EMP or something, these tractors wouldn't work, and we don't have food anymore. We had an industrial revolution to make a bunch of plows and all kinds of farm equipment. And I am a scrapper. I scrap metal, and I myself have scrapped a lot of farm equipment. And at one point I went, man, they did a lot of work to make these huge farm items that we're just constantly scrapping and trading in for electronic tractors and stuff. And it's I think we're putting ourselves at risk once again, and relying way too much on technology. When we depend on technology for survival of our society, we've now given them all the power, and we don't have freedom anymore. And so once again, it's the handbook to freedom. In order to do that, we need to be able to be self-reliant without technology. I also believe it's kind of warped our minds, and it's made people ugly and a little bit mean. As somebody who's on the computer and internet regularly, people are brutal. It is rough out there, and I mean, you just got to have thick skin and just be able to go through and be like, all right, especially somebody who's trying to help the world. Oh man, people don't necessarily always like that, but you gotta, that's where I think we just need to be more in touch with nature and be more in touch with the world, and maybe just shut electronics off and do 1 week on, 1 week off, or try and step away from electronics as much as we can, and just be connected with the world. I think that it's a challenge is to just do to go long, however long you can. I think that we need to create a challenge of no technology for as long as we can. So. All right, for my next chapter, it's going to be about my energy machine. So I got a little energy machine, like I said, that where you can create energy locally right here. Originally I designed it to run off of septic systems. All the wasted energy we have off of all our septics could be powering our communities. If we just put water generators like this in our septic lines, especially out of big plants and stuff, we could use this water to power our communities, and even recycle it and use it to water gardens and stuff, and have whatever, wash cars or something. Technically, when it comes out of the plant, it should be clean enough to drink, so they say. But so we're not going to drink it, but I'm saying that we use it and have a different line maybe in cities that have droughts and stuff. Because a lot of the cities, if you look at why they have droughts, it's because they've covered the entire cities with concrete, and your water can no longer disperse into your water table. So what you've done is you've diverted it all and ran it off into the oceans, into the rivers. So if you take that same water that's being diverted in your gutters and your drainage systems, city of LA has the same water output as our entire Lake of the Ozarks here. So their sewer is equal to our river that we have a dam in, and we power St. Louis in off of our dam. So if LA just took their sewers, especially since they're on a mountain and stuff, and used it to power their communities, they could do endless good with that. And in turn, all that water, like I said, that's being diverted and causing droughts because it's not going into the water table or the ground, they could have a different water line for that and use it to water their lines and water their lawns. And instead of encouraging people to not use water, encourage them to use this other water that's being wasted and diverted. And instead of having droughts and dry conditions and all these problems, you're gonna bring up the water table, and you're gonna help the droughts, and you're gonna solve your problems. And it's really just a simple way of thinking about a different way to do stuff. And you can take the same machine, and it's basically a gravity machine. Anything that has falling energy, you can take and produce power. So you could walk up a hill and ride this machine down the hill and power your home just off walking up the hill yourself, or you can do it at the bottom and use pulleys like the Romans, and just have a pulley system and raise stuff. There's in theory, it could be a perpetual motion, and you can have a water pump at the bottom going back up to the top and powering this thing. You could take semis off of mountains, and when semis go down mountains, instead of worrying about their brakes and being a runaway truck, just have this machine that generates all the energy. Just have it going off a cliff, put the truck on like an escalator, and just at the top have big generators off of posts that spin, generators that are the size of the ones at the dam that we power St. Louis with. And we could be powering entire states off of trucks just going off the mountains. Think how many trucks go down a mountain one day. Think we could just have the semi truck drivers all get up there and have 50, 20, 30 semi drivers ride down the hill in a bus and have their semis come down, and just power entire states this way. Or gravel quarries. There's gravel quarries in every town. Whenever they blow stuff up on top of the hill, bring it down. Power your community that way. So it's just an energy machine. You can make them locally. It's off nothing but steel and copper. I have my energy invention. It's one of my first 7 videos or whatever. I don't know which one it was. Might have been my 3rd. You can go back and check it out. I have an idea for it. In theory, I have not built it yet. I need a little help. So if anybody out there wants to help me do it, this would be a great idea to help humanity and give power to the people. So I'd appreciate any help I can get. I can use any and all I can get. But like I said, humanity's smart. I'm giving this idea away for free to try and help humanity. And I think that if, as long as we open source these inventions like this, we'll be able to help people. But if we ever go to patent them or control them, they'll just get shut down because they're a power to the threats that be. It's a matter of national security, and they can take any patent at any time. So yeah, like I said, I'm just giving it away. From there, we got a peace treaty. I wrote up a little treaty that just basically said I agree to let stuff go and just try and create peace in this world, and I'm going to just love my fellow human and just try and not create war and hard times in this world. And that I think one of the main things in it is that we just want to get rid of bombs. And if we can get rid of bombs, that's going to go a massive way, and weapons of mass destruction to create peace. And I think that's one of the biggest things. So yeah, and then the conclusion. But I guess I want to hit one more on the peace treaty. It's just that we got to do something. If we ever hope to fix things for future generations, we got to have the ability to put all our resentments and all our angers, as hard as it is when somebody's wronged you, to turn the other cheek and let go, or to just forgive and forget and just let it go. It's so hard. And justice always needs to be achieved, but at the same time, violence perpetuates violence and hate perpetuates hate. And if we constantly have enemies and are constantly fighting and warring, it's just going to perpetuate forever. So at some point we have to say, you know what, I'm going to let it go and do what I can for future generations and just let it go and try and create peace. And just, I know I've been wronged, and I know that bad things have happened, and I know that I don't like these people, but I'm going to still go to them and sit down with my enemy and try and do better for my kids and my grandkids. And that's where I'm at, is that I just want to see the world try and create peace. And I'm offering everybody, I'll be a peaceful mediator, and I want to see all sides, all enemies sit down across the table from each other and try and work for peace instead of fighting. So if anybody out there is brave enough to sit down with the enemy or the person across the table from you that is the exact opposite and try and create peace, please let me know. I think we just need to sit around and talk like adults about these problems instead of constant bickering and fighting, because that's what gives them the power. Once we can come together, we can figure solutions and put the power back in the people's hands. So I feel those in charge are doing terrible things to the planet and heading us down a terrible path. And war and destruction and greed is all they seem to care about. They'll destroy the planet for their money, and they'll go to wars and kill us all for their greed and their power. And I think that it's wrong, and we got to do something. And I beg everybody to please try and create peace in this world. And that's all I'm doing. That's the main thing of all this is I'm trying to get everybody to see other people's perspectives and not be so ugly towards each other, and just try and create peace. So the last of it is my conclusion. It gets a little wild. I just basically in this part I gotta not be a hypocrite, and in order to do all this I gotta put myself out there like I am right now, and be the change I want to see. I guess I can't just say all this and then not be the one to stand up and do it and be like, well, somebody really needs to do that. I guess I'm that person. And instead of saying, oh, the government needs to do this or somebody needs to do this, I think it's up to us to put our boots on the ground and do it. If we have a problem with something, anything, whether it's feeding the homeless or anything, instead of saying the government or anything, any problem we have, instead of saying the government needs to do it, we just need to figure out how to do it ourselves locally and just do the best we can in our community. And that's what I'm doing. So I am running for sheriff because I believe that the sheriff has pretty much the most power in the county, the sheriff and the prosecuting attorney. The commissioners have a lot of power too, but those are pretty much the main entities of power in the community that run everything. And the sheriff is the one that's an enforcer of it all. So the sheriff controls the community a lot more than what you'd think and the way everything works. And I have, with this book, I've written and said as far as I'm willing to take it. I won't do any of these ideas on my own. I think that we need to pass around petitions and vote this stuff in, but if we vote a no victim, no crime mentality, I would enforce that. If we voted on no federal taxes, and if the government ever came in and tried to stop us, I would enforce that as well. Oh man, I'm in a frisbee golf way real quick. So yeah, that's just a little bit on my thoughts for sheriff. I also do talk about bigger governments. I think most of our bigger governments are really ran by money, and it's really hard to overcome such a massive obstacle. Locally, it doesn't matter how much money you can throw. The local community, you can always be in touch. It's small enough to where you can change things, but local is about as far as you can still keep control of anymore. So bigger governments, I feel, is a wash, and so I basically am running under those. Actually, I'm getting ready to turn over my candidacy to my dog. I think my dog is the best candidate because he can't sign any laws, no matter which local or federal, especially federal, when you got 1,000-page laws being passed by politicians that don't even read them. That's run by lobbyists, not we the people, or freedom or anything like that. So my dog could never sign a declaration of war or drop any bombs saying nuclear codes, anything like that. So we get peace right there and we stop bombs and nuclear bombs right there. He can't pass any laws, so no more laws will be created. So we'll have 4 years of not losing freedoms, which would be great. And he couldn't pass any budgets. So since budgets can't be passed, they can no longer rob us and our kids' future generations, and can instead ask us voluntarily what we want to give them and get their budgets and work from there. So it's a pretty simple concept. Yeah, and that's just basically me standing by what I believe and not being a hypocrite. I don't want to stand out here. I don't want to be this. I don't have no intention to be a politician or anything. I don't want the job. I really don't. I'm just doing it to not be a hypocrite. I'd much rather go do my own thing, got a camper, and I just would rather go see the world and travel and enjoy freedom. But I'm doing this because somebody has to, and I'm really putting myself out there. And like I said, I don't want to do any of this. I'm just trying to help humanity and help future generations and trying to create peace. I'm not trying to be a leader or create a cult or all kinds of things. People think I'm trying to do all this crazy stuff, when in fact I'm saying no, I don't want any part of any of that mentality, and I think that everybody should have the freedom to do their own thing. And I'm just trying to create freedom in this world and stop all the division and just say you allow everybody to do their own thing. I'm doing the opposite of trying to force my ways on people. I'm trying to say everybody should do their own thing, which is, I know I'm out here saying stuff and it seems like I'm forcing my ways, but if you learn the message of what I'm saying, that I'm not trying to force my ways on anything. I'm trying to say that everybody should have the freedom to do what they want, and that's the message behind it all. So I'm not trying to control people or do anything in any way, other than just, like I said, trying to figure out a way to create peace. And I believe peace will be achieved through freedom, and that's why this book is called A Handbook to Freedom. And that was pretty much the entire book that I got and why I'm doing it. And like I said, I'm just doing it as a promise to my son who passed away, to try and help his brothers and future generations. I realized when he passed away that there's a lot of things wrong in this world, and I went down a lot of rabbit holes and I learned a lot of stuff. And I can't force everybody else to go down those rabbit holes and learn what I've learned and to see what I've seen. It's just we all have our own perspectives on this world, and my heart hurts for the world, and I'm trying to make it better somehow. And it's just I'm just trying to achieve peace and trying to make everybody get along. And you can be mad at me or whatever for it, or think whatever you want to think. At the end of it all, I'll gladly sit down with anybody and exchange ideas and thoughts and try and do it as peaceful as possible. I'll admit I haven't always been peaceful in my life, but I'm trying the best I can to make better decisions and make amends for the bad things I've done, I guess, or the mistakes I've made. And we all just have to be on a journey to learn and try and do better. I think when we get full of pride and just stuck in our ways or thinking that we're always right, it's a hard thing. So I'm always open to talk to anybody about anything, and I try to keep my mind very open. Like I said, I'm not perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes a lot through all this. Everybody does. You got to go into it knowing anything new that you go into, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and this is absolute uncharted territory. It seems like there aren't very many people trying to create peace in this world. There's just more division and more anger. So instead of being mad and fighting with everybody, I just try to tell everybody I love them and that I want to sit down with you and talk, and let's work this out. So it's a little different perspective. We all have our own. But I appreciate everybody. If you watched it this far, thank you very much. If you want to read my book, you can go ahead and download it. Like I said, there should be a PDF. As far as I understand, I'm not good with electronics and doing all this, but I'm trying to give it all away, and I just figured out I could do this. So now I'm absolutely giving it away for free via the PDF. So download it. If you want a copy, get a hold of me, 573-286-8316. I'll be happy to send you a real copy. It cost me like $7 a piece. I was going to sell them out in the public for maybe $15 and try and give my distributors a little bit, but I mean, if you ain't even got the money, I'll give it to you for free. I've given out all my books. I haven't even charged a single penny for any of my books yet, and I've given out a lot. I got $1,500 in books alone, but it's just I live my life very frugal and very tight, so it's just that. But that's on a separate entity. But like I said, this is my book. If you want it, go ahead and download it. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody out there if they want to try and help out. I appreciate you guys. I love everybody out there, and let's just try and get along in the world, please. Just try and create a little peace and just get along. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you.